We are here to remind you about it. That's not business only Ukrainians. Ukrainians there standing for freedom, for your freedom, for freedom all our planet. Because we are in the Third World War. Third World War began more than 10 years ago when the Russia took Crimea. And Ukrainians, only one power which hold it, bloody Russian Nazi there in the east. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to ask you for support, to ask you to help us to stand for our homes, for our freedom and freedom of yours. We want all free countries, all the countries of free people. Help Ukraine. We need more weapons to defend our houses. We need more weapons. That's all we need. We don't ask you to come and fight for us. We need more weapons. We need more fighter jets. We need more air defense. Because the Russia is 5 times bigger than Ukraine by population. It's a terrible, strong, dark power. And Ukrainians standing against them because that's our freedom. That's literally the question of our existing. Because if we give up, Russia will come and kill every single free man. Every single who don't want to be slave. Every single who don't want to be returned to Russian. They killing for Ukrainian language, for yellow and blue bracelet like I wear. They killing for Ukrainian pictures, for Ukrainian tattoos. All the city was liberated after the Russians. There are mass graves. There are torture chambers. There are many, many killed people. The bloody Russian invading sovereign country on the middle of Europe these days. And believe, if you don't see it in the news, there's terrible things happen every day. That's 1,000 missiles, bullets, rockets, they shelling our cities. Our children sitting in bomb shelters every day. On the middle of night, the parents woke up children and bring them to the basement because the bloody Russian Nazi launched hundreds of rockets and missiles and nobody knows where it's gonna land. They shell in residential houses on the middle of night when the peaceful family sleeps. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is a terrorist state and we all together need to fight against them. Russia is the terrorist state.
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 Putin is a criminal.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. And Ukrainians ask you to help them to stand for freedom and for our families. We need more weapons. We need more sanctions on bloody Russia. We need to put such a pressure on them they stop this war. That's only one way to stop this war. If the Russians come back to their home and live there they lived before. Ukrainians stand on their land as it was. It's a simple question. You don't need to be too educated or know about some politics to understand that Ukrainians have right to live. Ukrainians have right to love. Ukrainians have right to raise their children as they want. Ukrainians have right to sing our songs, to tell fairy tales for our children on our language, our fairy tales. Ukrainians doesn't want Russian lands. Ukrainians even now doesn't want to to kill all bloody Russians for that invasion. All Ukrainians want to get out the Russian military from Ukraine. I think it's fair. I think it's fair. And I think fair will be if all the free people in the world will stand with Ukraine. Will stand with a free country which was just live peaceful. World, support Ukraine.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine needs your support because it's in the terrible invasion of much bigger, crazy, savage's neighbor, which is Russia Federation is. That bloody Nazi these days. And believe me, if we all together will not stop them in Ukraine, they will go further. They will go to Poland, Lithuania, Romania, even to London. They will happy be to come and rob your rich houses, ladies and gentlemen. Read news from Ukraine. Believe me, every day there are shellings of peaceful cities by Russian. Russian use terrorist method to scare Ukraine, to force us to give up. But we know that our give up will be death for us, will be death for Ukrainian culture. Because Russian invasion, it's a terrible thing which happened not first time. It's happened many times in history. And it's proved by generations and generations of Ukrainians, of Georgians, of Belarus, of Polish, of Kazakhstan people. It's proved Russian coming and wiping away your nation. They bring vodka, everybody is drunk, and if you're not Russian, you are second sort people. You can't get some good post, and it's the lightest way. Other way, your family will be separate. You will be sent it to Siberia. Your children will send it to the other end of Russian Empire. That's all Russia bring. They bring tears. They bring blood. They bring torture, robbing, and raping. The bloody Russian Federation is a terrorist state. Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Putin is a criminal.
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 Putin is the criminal.
Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over, and it's far from the end. If all the world will not help Ukraine, Ukraine can fall as it was many times before, and Ukrainian great people gonna be slave of bloody Russians again. We will not let it happen. And I believe all the free people supporting us. Thank you for all support all around the world, all the countries. Ladies and gentlemen, take a picture of Ukrainian flag right now. Share it in your social media. Hashtag stop the war. Because all Ukrainians want to stop the war. Nobody in the world wants much more than Ukrainian to stop the war. But it's not the way to stop the war to give up for Ukrainians, because it's gonna be the death of European nation. Ladies and gentlemen, help Ukraine. Speak with your MP. Donate for different funds. If you don't want to donate Ukrainian military, it's okay. Donate for children. Donate for for animals, because it's big ecocide now in the front line. When the Russia coming, there is no human right, there is no right for the animals, for nature. They blowing up dams, they flood huge territory, they killing Askania Nova Zapovednik, it's destroyed. There was many species, they are not anymore exist, because the bloody Russian occupants came to our land. In the area where the Russian can reach on the front, under the front line, it's like 30-40 kilometers where the regular artillery reach. There is no school, there is no shopping, there is no church, there is no nothing. They shelling everything. They just terrorists which trying to scare community and make us give up. Ladies and gentlemen, they are bloody terrorists. The bloody Russia Federation, it's not in these days. It's a homophobic society. It's an evil. I don't know how to say else. This is just the evil empire which try to take over all the world. Ladies and gentlemen, when you see in Africa, in Asia, you will see the Russian hand everywhere, where it's conflict, where it's war. We need all together fight against this war, this evil, ladies and gentlemen. Ukrainian ask you for support. Ukrainian believe that true values will win. And after we win, I invite you to Ukraine to see how beautiful is our land, how hospitality is our people. World, support Ukraine!
All support Ukraine!
World, support Ukraine!
World 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 support Ukraine!
Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. And this beautiful, peaceful sky is peaceful just because Ukrainians, warriors, holding the bloody Russian horde there on the east. We all, at least in Europe, we need thanks for Ukrainian military to protect peace for you, for us, for all. But they need help. We have plenty, we have many brave men and women to protect our homes. But we need weapons, we need ammunition, we need fighter jets, we need air defense. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we ask. Send to Ukraine all the military scrap you have. We will fix it, and we will fight with the bloody occupants which come to our land. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine is free country, and we're fighting with much bigger enemy. If you don't see in news, any news about Ukraine, don't think it's over. It's many friends here in London asking me, oh, is it war over already? There is some Donald Trump promise it's war over. No, it's bullshit, it's not over, it's far from over. Every day it's getting worse and worse. Every day of this war costs thousands of lives of my sisters and brothers, of your sisters and brothers, because it doesn't matter what is color of your skin or what is the name of your God or where you live, in which continent. We all human beings, we all have right to live. And Ukrainians were peaceful country. We haven't any army almost. When the Russia invade us and all the world, it was almost keep calm and more quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, please support Ukraine. Take a picture of Ukrainian flag right now when you pass by us. Share it in your social media. Say, stop the war. Get out the bloody Russian from Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, every day It's happening terrible things. For example, I wrote down for the last week, from the last Wednesday, what it's a very rough list, but it's the general, the biggest strike of Russia on the Ukrainian civilians. Look, 19th of June, week ago, at night, Kyiv was attacked. Solomensky rayon, it's Solomensky borough in Kyiv. It's a central region of Kyiv. 28 people were killed. 134 people were injured. It was big residential houses on the middle of night in the capital of Ukraine. It was shelled, it was destroyed. Half of buildings, many, it was attacked by drone, by missiles. Yeah, us acting like these people who want negotiate, who want peace. That's what bloody Russian did. The same day, in Zaporizhia, they attacked by 13 drone kamikaze the post office building, the Nova Pochta. It's a private post company in Ukraine. Completely destroyed that office, all the residential houses, all the building around was with no window, damaged. Many people were injured. Big fire burned, many cars burned down. It's in the peaceful city of Zaporizhia, where was no around any military object. The same day, Kherson, an ambulance was attacked by drone, by FPV drone. Peaceful ambulance, not on the front line, it was just ambulance. 2 paramedics was heavily injured. Also, a fire brigade in that same city was attacked by multiple FPV drones. 3 firefighters was injured. It's only one day and only big strikes. Next day, 19th of June, bloody Russian Nazi shelled by bomb and drones Nikopol, killed 59-year-old man, 4 people were injured, including 11 years boy.
Таким флагом жопу хорошо вытели.
It was peaceful city. You know, the children are not on the front line. 20th of June, Odessa. Odessa was heavily shelled.
Що типу нас підтримують.
The city was heated by 10 times and was damaged. Big 24-floor building. And also was some missiles landed on the train station of Odessa. It is no, I reminded, not military object or something. It's just terrorist tactic of bloody Russian Nazis.
Неадекватно велосипеді.
Same day, Kharkiv.
Почав тут казати, о, що ви відділились,
I have to explain, in Ukraine there is typical 9-floor building panel buildings where there are many flats, and if you hit that building there is hundreds of people like on the heat.
Якби так типа до мене щось спитав би, я би
So in Kharkiv,
але вони бояться часто.
4 people were injured, including 12 and 17 years children.
Як ці
Same
боти тут
day,
учать,
Zaporizhia region.
Отут
in one of the
рот
villages,
відкривається,
pregnant
гімно
woman was
виливається.
injured
А
by
в реальному
Russian
житті
shelling.
сидять тихенько, як миші.
She was hospitalized, but she alive and she seems okay. It's not on the front line. It's in the peaceful cities and villages
Хто победил?
of
Иран?
beautiful Ukraine.
Да. Іранці дістали у рази більше втрат, ніж ізраїльтяни. Кучу там позицій знищені. Іран виграв. Все.
By drone. Sumy was shelled by drones against 9-floor building was damaged. Many people in hospital. 21st June, city Kremenchuk was 2 times strike to civilian power supply infrastructure. Why? to leave the Ukrainian without power, without food, without water. That's what Russia doing. That's a terrorist's method. The Russia is a terrorist state, and that's what they doing every day. Again, 21st June.
Треба за Дніпро теж сказати.
Again, Lancet, the drone, the big armor with wings, destroy private enterprise. It was big fire, but no civilian building were injured.
Є поранений.
On the Chernihiv region, city Nizhyn, 10 explosion in the town, 1 man dead.
Все цивільні
City Slovyansk, 70 years old boy dead. 32 private homes damaged. 4 9 floors building are damaged. It's a peaceful city. That's buildings where they live, just peaceful people with the children. 22nd June, city of Kramatorsk. Again, hit 9-floor building and industrial area.
Він зараз прийде до
5 people are dead, 4 people heavily injured, including 14 years old girl. Many people under the rubble. Many civilian people under the rubble. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, ask your grandparents how the London was bombed. Ask how the people, they should remember that stuff. Now the bloody Russian Nazi doing the same in Ukraine, what Germans did with London 80 years ago.
прийдеш інший раз буде.
22nd June, Kramatorsk, oh sorry, missile strike, the Russians make a missile strike on the training ground of Ukrainian army. 23rd June, as a result of attack on Kyiv, 6 people are dead, 31 people injured, including 2 children and pregnant women. Part of 9th floor residential house was destroyed completely to the basement. That's a big houses, and the part of that building, like a cart house, was destroyed to the basement. That's terrible things Russia doing in Ukraine. Big fire around the city, and Kyiv region, 1 person dead, 9 injured. In the city Bila Tserkva, the Russian bombed by drone kamikaze Shahed burned down hotel where was the private clinic. 23rd June, Chernihiv region, Lancet, it's a drone attack some village. 2 people are dead, 11 injured, including 4 children. Belgorod-Dnistrovsky, it was nice college in that city. Ballistic missile hit the college in the peaceful city Belgorod-Dnistrovsky. And thanks God it was holiday and wasn't many children in that school, in that college. But 2 teachers are dead, it was there on duty, and 12 injured, other people, including 2 children. It's a peaceful college. It wasn't any military object even close. That's what bloody Russians doing in Ukraine, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we're standing here and paying your attention and asking for help, asking for sanctions and for more weapons for Ukrainian army. Again, Kyiv. In Kyiv, after the night shelling, got out of the rubble dead body of 11 years old girl. Her mother was found earlier. And founded more dead people, 9 dead people in Kyiv. City Fastiv. There was a rehabilitation clinic for children and for Ukrainian veterans. It was destroyed, burned down by the Russian shelling. 24 June. Sumy region. Drones, after the drones attack, 8 people are dead, including 8-year-old boy, 6 injured. Kharkiv, drones attack, 3 people injured. Dnipropetrovщина, Dnipro region, missiles hit the peaceful civilian train number 52 from Odessa to Zaporizhia. Many people injured, 7 dead, 70 people injured, 7 dead. The bloody Russian shelling civilian in Ukraine. Civilian train, 7 people dead, 70 injured. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not far from here. It's happening right, it was 24th of June. The 24th of June, also, they shelling Dnipro city. Many fires, damaged office, college, students accommodation, 20 people are dead, 160 injured. In the peaceful city, in 21st century, 20 people dead, 160 injured. Was yesterday in Dnipro by shelling bloody Russian, ladies and gentlemen. Today, city Kupiansk, the big bomb which they launched from the plane, CAP, how it's called, avia bomb, should hit the 9th floor building. Big damages there, burned down car. In Kharkiv today was attack as well. Ladies and gentlemen, that's only 1 week and only one of the biggest death, it's terrible sounds, in Ukraine, which just I found fast in the train when I come here. That's what bloody Russia doing in Ukraine. That's information for those who thinking you can negotiate with Russia. Are the section people who want peace. And you are fool if you won't negotiate with Russia. You are stupid if you believe Russians. You are dumb if you trust Russians. Because Russia will betray you, Russia will promise you anything and break the world next minute. Russia is the terrorist state.
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 Thank you. Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Putin is a criminal.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. And we're here to ask you for support. We're here to demand that weapon which was promised Ukraine when we give up nuclear weapon long time ago. Ladies and gentlemen, we need that weapon to protect our lives. We need that weapon to protect our homes. We need those weapons to protect your freedom. Because you brave Ukrainian soldiers, brave Ukrainians, men and women, standing there for your freedom, ladies and gentlemen. We are all together on this planet. This planet's so small. You can't separate in some island and live or lock you in your house and live happily. It's not far from here. The bloody Russians shelling peaceful Ukrainian city. taking lives of children. That's what Russia doing. And we're here to ask your support. Take a picture of Ukrainian flag right now. Share it in your social media. Show your support for Ukraine. Show the bloody Russians they can't do it whatever they want. Show the bloody Russians the Nazi will not come again to this world. Show the bloody Russians that we are strong, we are thinking, we are together, we are human beings. Because the Ukrainians dying, holding the bloody Russians from prevented to come to here, ladies and gentlemen. Stand with Ukraine.
With Ukraine.
Stand 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 with Ukraine.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. We're here to ask your support. We're here to ask, become a human being, active human being, and do something to stop this war. Believe me, the same war which is in Asia, in Africa, between Israel and Palestine, Iran, it's the same war. It's the same enemy. It's a totalitarian regime. It's the dictators, crazy old bastards who want to take over the power. That's the same enemy we have. And only Ukrainian army stand there in Ukraine and holding the bloody occupants to come further to Europe, to bomb your houses, to bomb Poland, Romania, Lithuania, Berlin, London. Believe me, Russian wanted. If you see the Russian TV, it's a terrible thing they speaking about. They proposing to bomb London, to bomb Washington, Paris, whatever. They could bomb anything. They have no respect to anybody. They have no respect to each other first of all, and bring this culture, let's say, and spread it. That's what they trying to bring to Ukraine. But now they just stopped by Ukrainians armed forces. Ladies and gentlemen, they need more weapons to throw away the bloody Russian occupants from the land which not belong to them. From the land they come with no right. They broke all the international laws.
Fuck off, you big gay!
You too! Damn. Poor idiot. Ladies and gentlemen, the bloody Russian is a terrorist, and Ukrainians fight with them and doesn't let to spread the terrorism around the world. Russia is the terrorist state.
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 Putin is a criminal.
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 Russia is the terrorist state.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. Ukrainians fighting with the bloody Russian Nazi. The Russia is 5 times bigger than Ukraine. But Ukrainians holding them. Ukrainians are able to throw them away. But we need more help, we need more weapon, we need more support, we need more sanctions on Russia. More sanctions on Russia.
More sanction on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanction on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanction on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanction on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
That's when the United States, brave United States bombers bomb the people in the desert with no air defense. I was thinking, so why don't let Ukrainians even bomb the bloody Russian Nazi? Why you don't show your bravery and put pressure on bloody criminal Putin? Why you calling him friend? Why you calling him on the phone? Why you speaking with him? It's a bloody criminal. So you bomb Iran immediately. It was like, I don't know, 2 weeks. What, 10 years? Russia bombing civilian in Ukraine, Russia invading country in the middle of Europe, and you acting like it's nothing happened. That's like strange for me, and all the blah 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 about values. All can I don't pay taxes maybe? If there's no left law, can I don't pay taxes? Can I steal petrol on the gas station? Can I come to my neighbors and take his TV set? No, nobody doing it. But Russia does, and everybody keep quiet. The world still buying Russian oil, still buying Russian gas, in the drones, in missiles, which killing Ukrainian children. The many details from America, from Europe, from China. Why is it happening like this? Or we can do, if I'm stronger, I can come to you and take your phone or whatever. It's not correct. Such a thing can't be happen in the 21st century, on the middle of Europe, with such a good people, such educated people around. The bloody Russia killing Ukrainians' children. The bloody Russia making genocide of 40 billion nation on the middle of Europe. And it seems like nothing happened. Just some Ukrainians and they friend two times per week standing here and screaming glory to Ukraine, glory to Ukraine. What they want with this Ukraine? It's very painful, ladies and gentlemen, realize that we live in the world where there's no rules, no laws. I don't know, maybe we need to buy a gun, everybody, and go and rob the banks, post offices. It looks like it's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the war in Ukraine is not over. The bloody Russian Federation trying to invade free country which called Ukraine. Beautiful country with the beautiful people. Just, I don't know, take a picture of Ukrainian flag right now, share it in your social media. At least pray for Ukraine when you go into the bed, if you believe in God, whatever you believe. Send to universe some good thought about Ukraine. If you don't want to speak about it, if you don't want to help, to be volunteer, if you're tired from the war, Ukrainians are not tired, because we don't have a choice. We win or we disappear. That's two options. There is no option when the Russian come and Ukraine will be exist. There wasn't this option never. There was never happened. Ladies and gentlemen, all Ukrainians want to stop the war. To stop this war, we need to throw away the occupants from our land. This is Russian Federation. That's a bloody Nazi terrorist country which terrorized peaceful Ukrainian peoples. We ask here for help, we ask here for more weapons, we ask here for more sanctions on bloody Russia. We ask here for pray, we ask here for donate, we ask here to come join us, to stand, to read the posters, to listen speakers, to share this information with your family, on your job, because in the news it's nothing about Ukraine. But for last week, it's a 20 minutes reading text of the shelling Ukrainian peaceful cities. Stand with Ukraine!
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 When the United States strike Iran, as you know, maybe don't, I'll tell you, Russia condemned this attack. They say this attack unjust aggression that has no justification. And there was some more words which totally describe what Russia doing with Ukraine. And now the bloody Russian лицемір'я. Як буде лицемір'я? Хто знає? Yeah? Hypocrisy. The bloody Russian hypocrisy saying about the others, they condemn the other, what they doing. It's I know for Western people are hard to believe what Russia doing in Ukraine, how Russia acting, because if you are a human being and you had mother, father, like more or less whatever, you know you can't kill, you can't steal, you can't beat who is weaker than you. It's a simple human like rules. It's, I don't know, it's not even rules, it's in the DNA. So the Russian break everything. The Russian broke that DNA code, Russian broke the international law, Russian broke all the humanity laws. And the world, such a great world, who fight for rights of animal, haze, whatever, we need to scream about it. We need to scream about bloody war in the middle of Europe. Stand with Ukraine!
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 Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Захисникам України тричі!
Слава! Слава!
Слава! Москалям тричі!
Смерть! 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 Україна!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
I'm sure all of you, my friends, have seen very clearly today the face, the representative of our usual opposition. An individual who drove his car today, put his head out of the window and started shouting obscenities in our general direction. Very interesting people, you know, very interesting individual. It truly does impress me, the vocabulary, the unbelievable individual was so silver-tongued that he actually managed to completely negate all the points with simple insults, right? Wrong, of course. You don't negate somebody's point by insulting them. In fact, you prove that you yourself do not have anything valid, anything worth saying in the first place. But alas, some people are small-minded enough to think that they have something to gain simply by throwing abuse at others. Now, this is one of the things that some individuals grievously misunderstand about freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is not going out in the open and behaving like a complete and utter psychopath. Freedom of speech is not starting to shout obscenities and insults at others. That is not freedom of speech, my friends. That is being an idiot. That is being a fool. That is being a low-brow individual. Freedom of speech is to be free to voice your opinion and to not suffer any consequences to your well-being. That is freedom of speech. To shout fire in a packed theater is not freedom of speech. That is a crime, and you can look it up if you don't believe me. It is an actual crime. Now you may ask, oh, why is that? Why is shouting fire a crime? It's very simple. If you do that, there might be a stampede and people may die. It's not just a prank, it's not just an opinion. It is actually causing death and suffering. The same applies for people who lie and cheat and deceive and spread misinformation and incite to violence. That is not freedom of speech, because that incites direct violence on others. And no matter what the reasoning they offer is, it is still incitement of violence. And Russia is a master in that regard. Russia punches way above their weight in terms of disinformation. They're very capable of doing that, you see. Oh, I just ripped this apart. I just ripped Marx out of here. Communist terrorism. Another great poster by our friend Jan here. Just a second. Well, I would like to actually use this moment to mention a little quote by Marx. I don't agree with him on almost anything, but he does have a very good quote about Russia, about the so-called beautiful Russian culture and Russian history. He says, the Russians have inherited the low cunning of the Mongol slave and the brutal ruthlessness of the Mongol Khan. Incredible way of putting it, truly. I haven't heard a single sentence that would sum up Russia as well as this one. Unbelievably accurate. Truly, the low cunning of the Mongol slave and the brutal ruthlessness of the Mongol Khan. The Russians, they do not see any other way. You're either a slave who suffers what he has to suffer and moves forward as a meat wave, or you're the Khan who bosses others around and who needs to be obeyed no matter what. It's the only way they see the world. They don't see shades of gray. You're either a Khan or a slave, that's it. And Russia sees Ukraine as its own slave. Russia sees the whole world as its own slave. Russia only acknowledges the countries that are capable of giving them a bloody nose. That is what Russia acknowledges. To try to be friends with Russia is as stupid as to try to make a hungry lion shake paw with you. You know, to offer him your hand and expect him to offer you his paw and shake it. It's as stupid as that. But Russia is no lion. Russia is a much more disgusting creature. To compare Russia to a lion is a disservice to all lions on this earth. Russia is a worm, slowly gnawing at the roots of the free world, slowly destroying it, hollowing it out from within. That is Russia. That is the beautiful Russian culture we've heard so much about, the culture of Dostoevsky and Tchaikovsky, which, by the way, Tchaikovsky was Ukrainian. One of many individuals who the Russians have appropriated so that they would claim to be a great nation. A nation of great lies and liars. A nation of small people. In fact, if you're not one of the great liars who rules Russia, you're amongst the small people and you have no choice in the matter. But you know, now you ask me, my friends, why does this matter? Why does it matter that Russia is a country-sized prison? Why does it matter that in Russia you're either the Khan or a slave? Why does it matter to me? I'm not in Russia. Well, it's very simple, my friends. It's because Russia is spreading. And Russia plans to spread in this direction. Russia is planning to conquer all of Ukraine. No exceptions. Russia plans on conquering the Suwalki Gap from Lithuania. And for those who might have forgotten, Lithuania is part of NATO. So war against Lithuania is a war against the United Kingdom. It's just for those who might have forgotten that part. But then there's also other individuals. This is mentioned, by the way, to the far right. Because the far right, although it supports arming the country, it opposes supporting the allies of your own cause. And that is the stupid part. Why fight a war on your own soil when you can beat your enemy abroad and prevent them from reaching you as a result? I mean, it's the best case scenario. But the far right, their boozy brain, it cannot understand such complex issues. The far left, on the other hand, it has other issues. The far left, it just opposes their idea of imperialism. But what is imperialism for the far left? For the far left, having enough weapons to defend yourself against a psychopathic regime abroad, that's imperialism, apparently. I mean, we've seen all of these brain-dead individuals trying to vandalize British planes and British weapons factories. In the name of peace, they say, oh, these weapons were going to be used against the innocent. Nonsense. What absolute nonsense is this? Imagine during World War II that these kinds of teenagers would sneak into the weapons factories and would say, oh, you know, more weapons equals more war. We need peace with Hitler. Imagine they said that. They would get a proper trashing for that. But nowadays, no. Nowadays, we have a very nice and rosy society in which to say we destroy our enemies in war is too aggressive, it's too much, it's too mean. It's too much of a meany thing to say. We need to say we want to stop Russia. We need to say we want to end the war. That's what we need to say. Foolishness. Absolute foolishness. We need to call a spade a spade. We need to say what needs to be done. We need to destroy the Russian terrorist regime once and for all. That is the solution to this war. That is the solution to any war in which you are fighting for your survival. And make no mistake, the survival of Ukraine protects the survival of the free world. This is an existential threat for the whole free world, especially for the United Kingdom, which was one of the most important countries in coining the ideology of the free world. Freedom of expression, rule of law, religious tolerance, such things do not exist everywhere in the world. Make no mistake, not every country is equal, not every culture is equal. Russia is not an equal to the free world. Russia is inferior in every single possible way. But Russia does have one thing. One thing. How are you, my friend? Oh, is it? Oh, why don't you stop and explain why? Oh, that's a shame. I thought it was such a deep point to make. Money laundering operation. And here he goes. Money laundering operation. That's an interesting one. You know, it reminds me of all the times that individuals, very, very well-read, I'm sure, individuals, were blaming Zelensky of being a drug addict. Which begs the question, where's the proof for that? Where's the proof for this so-called money laundering operation? We've seen a lot of so-called proof coming from the sort of the MAGA crowd, of the brain-dead, drunk right in the West, who showed a bunch of pictures in Mexico and said, oh, look at that, that's a javelin provided by the US to Ukraine, and now they sold it to Mexico, right? Wrong. Apparently it was not a javelin after all. And apparently it wasn't even in Mexico. Quite an interesting situation. But Russia, it thrives in this kind of environment. It shows you a picture where something looks like something else, and it doesn't give you any context whatsoever. It just throws the picture there and lets the conspiracy theorists do the rest. That is the beauty of the Russian disinformation in our modern day and age. An age of information and an age of lies as well. Russia, it does not bother explaining in detail anything at all. Russia throws a conspiracy theory, throws a few different theories in the mix, makes the fire burn, and then allows people to do the rest. How are you, my friend? You okay? You good? Okay. I don't know what that jest means, but alas. Oh well, I'm sure he was saying hello in his own culture. How are you guys? Well, you know, very well-behaved crowd, very nice crowd today. I like it. Truth be told, my friends, I wish the other individual on the bicycle who was here a while ago, who started shouting, oh, F the money laundering operation. I really wish that these individuals would bother to actually say something. But you know what? It takes bravery to stop, look someone in the eye and tell them, listen, I disagree with you. Thank you, my friend, thank you. To tell them, I disagree with you, and this is why I disagree with you. That's it. It takes bravery. And I understand that there's a crowd here, we have a crowd indeed, around us. But truly, my friends, what are we going to do? Are we going to jump anyone who has a different opinion? Of course not. We live in this country where we have the privilege of being free to speak as we like, to say what we want to say, to explain our own opinion, to show the facts at hand to the whole world, and debate with the people who may disagree. That's a huge privilege. Lots of countries in this world do not have that. Do you think Iran has that? Never. You go to jail in Iran for not wearing a burqa. You are forced to cut off your genitals in Iran and do an operation if you are a homosexual. You are forced to become a trans woman by the government. It's an insane society. It's absolutely insane. You force people into jails and you beat them down for their words, for things that they said. Online, in real life, it doesn't matter. That is modern day Iran. Ayatollah Iran, the terrorist Ayatollah regime. North Korea. In North Korea, there's a thing called the generational guilt. What is this? It means that if one person, one man or woman, does something that the North Korean government disagrees with, not only they themselves, but the next generation and the one after and the one after ends up paying for it. Sometimes in concentration camps, sometimes in jail, sometimes getting tortured day and night. That is North Korea for you. What about Russia then? Well, many of you, my friends, may not know this, but in Russia, beating your wife is in the constitution. It is allowed. If you beat your wife in Russia, that's A-OK, no problem whatsoever. There's only one caveat. If there is grievous bodily harm, as in broken arms, legs, broken neck, you know, casualties, obviously, gouge out eyes. If there's such a thing, then no, it's a bit too much. But if you beat your wife just to the extent of not showing it too much, then it's perfectly fine in Russia, you see. What a lovely country, what a lovely culture, what a lovely place to live, what a great country to allow to do as they please and spread wherever they want to go. Truly, Russia is not our enemy, is it? Jokes aside, my friends, Russia stands for all the opposite things that modern day society stands for. We speak about tolerance. Russia does their neo-colonialism in sub-Saharan Africa as they eradicate any village who opposes them. We speak about religious tolerance, and this is a topic. This is such an insidious point that the Russian terrorist regime makes. I'm glad I remembered about it right now to speak about this. I keep occasionally receiving from some people, some of these people are my friends. I keep receiving these short videos of supposedly Ukrainian soldiers attacking priests and churches and closing down the churches. And they ask me, Pavlo, what's going on? What is this? What's going on here? Why are they attacking the church? Are they religiously intolerant? Let me ask you, my friends, would you trust a KGB agent at the head of your church? Do you know what the KGB did to churches in the Soviet Union? For those who do not know, I'll tell you, no problem. They persecuted them, they killed them, they butchered them, they confiscated all of their possessions. There was no religion in the Soviet Union, and they persecuted it with extreme prejudice. Now, the head of the Muscovite Patriarchate is an ex-KGB agent, and the head of Russia is another ex-KGB agent. I mean, what a deeply religious country, isn't it? Country of God. Truly, they spread God's gospel with their KGB little rhetoric. Once again, my friends, jokes aside, the Patriarch Kirill, he is not a representative of religion. He is a representative of the Russian terrorist regime. And the Russian terrorist regime uses their version of their religion to force their views onto everyone else. That is why they blast the bombs and the rockets that they are about to throw at Ukraine. You can see the videos online, it's very easy to find. That is why they encourage their soldiers that raping Ukrainian women is okay in the eyes of God. God forgives according to the Russian Orthodox Church. That is why they tell their soldiers, their heroes, that butchering captives is perfectly fine. You see, that they chose to side with the devil, with Ukraine, and that's why it's fine to kill them. That is what the Russian Orthodox Church says in Russia. But what do they say in Ukraine? In Ukraine, they're perpetually, every single waking hour, they spread misinformation, and they instigate people to do something against Ukraine, anything, to speak against it, to donate to them, to the church, funds which then go to the Russian terrorist regime. There have been some Russian Orthodox churches in Ukraine with weapons stashed underneath, preparing for a full-scale insurrection. And these are the churches we hear that should be protected. These are the priests who say Ukrainian women should be raped, that we hear that we need to be tolerant of. Let me tell you something, my friends. There can be no tolerance of the intolerant. There can be no tolerance to rapists. There can be no tolerance to murderers. There can be no tolerance to thieves and to criminals. No tolerance to them. As simple as that. Ukraine has actually had a remarkable level of self-restraint in dealing with the Russian Orthodox Church. Me, myself, I would be way more heavy-handed on them. I'll be honest with you, my friends. Ukraine has been unbelievably tolerant and very careful not to ruffle any feathers, not to accuse people who are not to blame. Perhaps Ukraine is suffering for that tolerance. As long ago, Ukraine used to call Russia its brother. Look where that got us now. This is what happens when you look at an enemy and you call them brother. You say, oh, my friend, my brother, we will live years together in peace. Look, I'll give up my nuclear arsenal to be your friend. And then you get stabbed in the back. This is what the Russian terrorist regime will do to anyone who calls them friend or brother, who shakes hands with them, who gives them and asks for things in return. They will get nothing compared to what they will lose. And they will lose everything, sooner or later. That's a certainty, my friends. They're trying to make Ukraine lose everything. They have captured countless people. They're torturing them every single day. They've shown some of these means of torture. They're not afraid of doing it. Many countries, the US, for example, what they did in Iraq was atrocious. However, the US was rightfully so for their own sake, trying to withhold that from the public eye. Russia doesn't. Russia doesn't even try to hide it. Russia shows it to everyone and is proud of the atrocities they do. They say, yes, we strapped electrical wires to that man's genitals. And they do that every single day. Russia does this day in, day out. They torture people every single way they know how. And what does the world do about it? The world tries to negotiate with them. Oh yes, of course. Let's give more lands to these psychopaths who strap electrical wires to men's genitals, who rape women with broomsticks and then mutilate every single one of their captives, who starve them, sometimes to death, sometimes into a state where they look like a skeleton, a person one step away from dying. That is what the Russian terrorist regime does to its captives. That is what we're flirting with right now, what people like Mr. Trump want to negotiate with and make peace with. And on that note, my friends, I think it's very important for all of us to remember about these great people who have suffered much, who have died for the sake of freedom in the free world. It's important to remember them. And for the sake of those who have died, for the sake of those who have suffered and who are suffering now, I invite you all to do a minute of silence. Thank you. You know, my friends, speaking of the insidious points of the Russian terrorist regime, one of the most insidious points I've ever heard, truly disgusting, those faint of heart, please do not listen to what I'm about to say, was done by Phidias, the so-called politician in Cyprus. He is actually just an influencer who got famous on TikTok and who's getting paid by Russia right now, and thus he spreads their propaganda. Phidias, when asked why did he oppose condemning the kidnapping of thousands of Ukrainian children by the Russian terrorist regime, you know what he answered? He said, how do you know they want to return? How do you know they want to go to Ukraine? How do you know they're not happy where they are? I mean, that is the right thing to say, right? About the child who has been kidnapped, right? My friends, what kind of a world do we live in where a child is kidnapped and there are scum who come up with the point that, oh, you know, you don't know if that child wants to come back to their parents. You don't know that. How do you know? Did you ask them? Did you ask? What a stupid, disgusting, and absolutely ridiculous worldview to have. And my friends, this worldview is common sense amongst the people who support Russia. In fact, it is the worldview amongst them. First, they will usually, if you ask them, do this exercise, it's very nice. If you know a person who supports Russia, ask them what they think about the thousands of Ukrainian children Russia has kidnapped from Ukraine. I bet you that they will start with the point that, oh, you know, no, that didn't happen. Then you give them proof that it happened. They say, oh no, it did happen, but it's not that bad. Then you show them that it's as bad as you said. They say, oh, okay, it's that bad, but others did the same. And they'll try to do whataboutism. They'll try to tell you, oh, what about this, what about that, what about the US, what about NATO? But then you bring them back to the point again. And you know what will happen if you speak to someone who, usually this is an actual Russian. Usually. They will say, and sometimes they will whisper, because they do not want to be heard saying this. They will say, yes, we did it, and they deserved it. That's what the Russians say as their last reply to accusations of war crimes. When all of the nonsense is thrown us away, when all their arguments are torn asunder, the only thing that remains is, yes, we did it, and we did the right thing. That's what Russia says every single time. You can look for yourself. It's not difficult, truly. Look at Phidias. He has a perfectly easy time excusing kidnapping tens of thousands of Ukrainian children because not every single child was asked whether or not they want to return to their parents. Think of that. But my friends, there's a lot to say every single time. I'm grateful for all of you for coming here. And those who want to join us, please feel free to do as such. These rallies are not restricted to only Ukrainians. Everybody is free. Everybody is free to join us here. Everybody who wants to add their voice to ours. You can speak here if you like. You can come here, hold the flag, you can donate, you can buy some lovely merchandise in our tent. Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Ворогам України тричі! And now, my friends, we're going to end this rally with the Ukrainian anthem.
Ні слова, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіла ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Ворогам України тричі! Дякую.
Sveiki. Jūs viena šiandien, ar ne?
Ką?
Viena šiandien.
Viena?
In Russia it's technically illegal. In China it's technically illegal, but they do it. They still do it.
But in Iran,
Iran is legal.
What is illegal?
Organ trafficking.
organ traffic.
Sorry?
Organ trafficking.
Yeah, you can sell a kid illegally. Then there is a fine margin. And so, prostitution is a fine margin. You make a complaint. So,
That's the muta.
yes, so you can.
I think that's not unique to Iran though. That's not unique to Iran. There's
Especially in Iran.
a few countries in the Middle East they have that.
Organ.
Organ.
Let's talk about
Prostitution.
Are you both British?
No,
No. Are you?
I am
I'm
German.
And you?
English.
English, German, yeah?
Yes.
Right. Good. I see you every time coming here.
Well, when we can, when we're not away. We're just about to go away for a few weeks, so you won't see us for a few weeks. But yeah, we come when we can.
Can you say some few words to my live chat?
Okay. What about?
It's
Yeah.
why you support Ukraine.
Okay. I support Ukraine because it's the right thing to do. The Russian invasion was a great shock to me. I didn't think about politics, thought it was nothing to do with me, and then I suddenly realized, I've been kind of like asleep, thinking, life would go on in a nice way, and then Russia came along and proved me wrong. And I've been horrified,
Have you been before in Ukraine?
Never. No, I didn't know much about Ukraine before the invasion. I was kind of like, I just thought the world was an okay place, a safe place. Or Europe was, Europe, okay. It's like you think we learned something from 2 world wars, that we would never go through this madness again, that would be the end of it, but it seems like Russia didn't learn that.
Which year you come here the first time?
Well, when the invasion happened, not 2014, but I mean, no, but in 2022, that was kind of like when we kind of woke up and just thought, well, what's happening? It was just too bad, and then we went to the demonstrations at Trafalgar Square, and you kind of stand there and you wonder about, like, every time a plane goes over and you think, is that going to be the Russians? Are they going to drop the bombs like they said they were going to drop bombs on us? Or are the nukes coming? But then we had this really great woman. She was kind of like leading the demonstrations, and she said this thing. She said to the crowd, she said, are we scared? And you knew what the answer was. No. Are we angry? Yes. Will we fight? Yes. And just kind of like, just realise that you have to have a certain attitude to Russia. There is, we have to.
Thank you for your support.
Yeah.
And did you speak still in Germany? German language, yeah?
Of course, yes.
Can you say something in German language?
Oh my God.
Oh, yes.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja, ich spreche Deutsch, aber ich bin gar nicht gewöhnt, über den Krieg in Deutsch zu sprechen, und ich kann versuchen, was soll ich sagen? Ja, ich bin auch seit Anfang an, ersten Tag dabei, und es ist einfach ungeheuerlich, was hier passiert, und ich kann einfach nicht still sein und einfach andere Sachen machen, ohne hier teilzunehmen, wenn ich nur immer kann. Ich kann nur hoffen, dass es wahr ist, was wir hier immer sagen, dass wir alle zusammenstehen bis zum Sieg. Bis zum Sieg, obwohl ich es oft fast nicht glauben kann, weil ich sehe, was für schreckliche Schwierigkeiten Ukraine hat, jetzt vor allen Dingen durch Trump und so weiter. Aber ich denke, es muss einen Sieg für Ukraine geben, egal wie lange es dauert.
Did you been in Ukraine before?
Nein.
Did you support the Germany government?
Support German government?
Yeah, did you like your government?
You mean the new one now?
Yes, yeah.
Well,
I think you like more Angela Merkel, yeah?
No, not really. I mean, I'm
Because
I'm a bit more
she
liberal
too much
left
friendly
wing.
with
Yeah,
Putin.
she was. Yeah, she was, but maybe she didn't really know what she was doing. I don't know. But she came from the east and sort of, she knew Russian, she spoke Russian and all that. I don't know. Merz, now he seems to be more determined, right, to help Ukraine no matter what, and also to increase the budget for war against something which is very unpopular, has been very unpopular ever since the end of the war in Germany, right?
What do you think? Taurus, it's a good idea to
well, I guess
drop to Ukraine.
If I don't know that much about weapons and so on, but I think yes, whatever Ukraine can get,
yes,
they
make
should
it
get,
Taurus,
whatever
because
they
Russia
can.
very scared this missiles.
So that's.
Danke schön.
Yeah, vielen Dank.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. А так, пришло время, когда немцы помогают украинцам против русских. Такое вот время пришло. Так, кто хочет терапию от Павла, ставим плюсик. Сейчас Павло может вас чуть-чуть полечить. кому нужна терапия. Бабка рассказывает, как в Гитлер-Югент в детстве была. Да? Ну, этой бабке лет 65-70. Что-то с математикой у тебя плохо, наверное. Узкоглазая. Что это немка? Какая узкоглазая? Максим, она не бабка, а красивая женщина. Вот так вот. Так, ставим плюсик, если хотите, чтобы Павло вас чуть-чуть полечил. Я думаю, Павло готов сегодня терапию с вами провести. Вот тебе плюсик. Очень много. Классные стримы. Ну вот, среда-воскресенье. Из какой страны мигрант? Я из Донбасса.
Когда транслюєш TikTok?
YouTube.
YouTube?
Так.
А як називається?
Паляниця.London.
Як?
Паляниця.London. Павло,
Я з тобою піду. А ви так.
ми йдемо?
Йдемо.
А хто з нами?
Не знаю, чи я буду йти. Мабуть,
Чого?
троє, не знаю. Блін, сьогодні справді щось мало людей. Йдемо.
Можемо піти. Сейчас Павло терапию будет проводить. Не расходимся. Пишем, кто с какой Раша пошла на Пишем, кто с какой области. Пишем, кто с какой области. Тут хлопці чекають терапію від Павла.
Привіт, як справи?
Терапия від Павла.
Патриоты не спят никогда, было бы во власти Украины, украинцев не было бы войны. Кто тебя туда пустил? Блін, якісь дуже відкриті запитання у вас сьогодні, дуже відкриті фрази, а може щось специфічніше скажете, типа, ну, я люблю Путіна, типа, скажіть, що ви його любите. Чому любите? Jan, you going home or are you coming?
I think I might go home actually because I've got a reenactment weekend coming up.
Fair enough, no worries. We'll
yeah.
call it a day then.
Okay, let's go to Charing Cross, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
До побачення.
До побачення. Ватные боты, как всегда. О, правду кажу? О, а вот и дурка за вами приехала. Яка дурка, чоловіче? Час. Подождите, Светку кину. They're a bit boring today, man. They're not saying anything.
But
They're saying some...
They're losing because they're going crazy. Because Putin is going mad now, and Medvedev is saying from England and all this kind of thing. When they're losing, they go crazy, like a cornered rat.
They're saying some, random nonsense here.
Yeah,
not making any coherent sense.
That's what you expect with the Communist Party.
Well, goes without saying. Very true.
Комуністична мафія.
Ну, бачиш. Оце наш друг тут Ян, він добре розбирається в цьому всьому. Суддя по рожі сразу видно. Голодають за родину на чужбині.
Хто там?
А це боти, говорять всякі.
Москалі?
Деякі з них, мабуть, так, деякі, можливо, ні. Ти ж бачив ці відоси, що вони в Пітері мають такі великі кімнати, де телефон, куча телефонів. І вони так засоряють весь інтернет ботами цими. Вони їм дають прерогативу, оце, кажи, і вони це продовжують. Так.
Я чувствую, то
І
легко.
пара справжніх людей можуть піти в стрім, один-два, і вони будуть справжні коментарі тиснути, а решта все боти. Решта все кажуть чисто ви фашисти, всяке таке.
Путін хуйло.
О, чуєте? О, от, наприклад, оце чистий коментар бота, хрю-хрю-хрю.
Ага,
Чисто коментар бота,
Ну так, бо коротко писати.
Да, ну.
Путін здав.
Путін здох, так. Було б добре. Would be very nice if Putin just kicked the bucket, man.
Oh, lovely, yeah. That would be nice.
I'd love that.
This version he's dead long time ago.
Yeah.
But there is his like replica of how it's
Yeah. Like one of the doubles.
Росія
There's
не
this theory,
existует, Росія закончилась. Это Путинистан, де-факто Путинистан.
Yeah.
И жизнь там, в Путинистане, это как фильм
Зелений слонік. Ти колись дивився «Зелений слонік»?
Yeah.
Блін, це найкращий фільм, щоб описати російську культуру. Там, коротше, показують парочку таких, армійців у тюрмі російській. І що там все відбувається з ними, що з ними роблять, як знущаються. Ну, ти собі уявляєш, що фільм такий жорсткий.
Армійці в тюрмі ще.
Там
мікс такий, що...
незамінний. Класика справжня у Росії,
Русський мір?
Русський мір, все, русський мір.
Essence of русський мір.
Русский мир,
Русский мир, это полота.
71% ответил, что победил Иран. Орузл в шокі. Що таке орузл? Чому вас досі не викинули? А що нас мають викидати? Не знаю. Що ми робимо погане? Ми все добре робимо. Підтримуємо країну проти вашого бидла. Є. Що? Да, чому точно, люди, я чесно вам скажу, я не розумію, чому ви голосуєте, що Іран виграв війну. По яких це параметрах Іран в кінці виграв війну?
Ти шукаєш логіку в кацапів?
Ну я знаю, моя вина.
Все, хлопці, давайте.
Давай.
Цілую,
щасливо. Взагалі-то правда. Я думаю, що у вас довбнута, але може бути якась логіка, така дуже дурна. Хочу посміятись. Давайте, скажіть мені.
Айтолла сказав, що перемога.
Якщо Аятолла сказав, то це має бути правда, правильно. Ви знаєте, я не знаю, чи ви за це чули, але в Ірані були пара днів, що вони виключили інтернет повністю і включили по телевізору AI images, типа відео штучного інтелекту розбомбленого Тель-Авіву. Як вони розправились з Ізраїлем.
І літаки ізраїльські.
І літаки Ізраїлі, да. І все штучний інтелект. Смішно. Телепень. Хтось просто сказав телепень. Приємно познайомитись, телепень. Мене звати Павло. Як тебе справи? Оце Ліда Зоріна. Цікаво. Це в Google перекладач зайшла. Опа! Як от таке перекласти? А як телепень по-російськи буде? Дурак? Дурень. Дурень – це дурак. Може телепень, як красномовніше. Дурачок. Мантри. Та я знаю, що це значить, але ж не знаю. Дурачок по-російськи може, так. Опа. Мантри. Да и в Иране режим требует врага для промивки народу. Це Рашка найкраще робить. Вони завжди знайдуть ворога, правда, Віталій?
Покажите.
Що?
Путин.
О, Путін.
Это Путин.
Бачите?
100%.
Це Путін вам. Бачите?
Є ще Путин там.
Десь. Гарно, правда?
Гоблин. По-русски что? Гоблин тоже, да?
Ну, Гоблін, так.
Гоблин.
Так само, сказати.
А ти дивився це?
Гаррі Поттер. Що?
Stranger Things.
Ні, я не дивився Stranger Things, але я чув за нього. Це кажуть, що добрий серіал. Я не знаю. Вони вже нічого не кажуть, вже звалили боти, все, і так.
Скільки ви?
Вони змились, 50. Змились, блін, змились. Все, їм набридло. Отакі в нас справи. Бо я нечайно що собі були в кишені засунув, подумаю, що то мій.
Щось на китайському.
Що? О, прикольно.
Поліглот?
Вже 87 знов.
Китайский.
Ніхао.
Чин-чау-чау.
Ніхао, ніхао.
Xi Jinping.
Так, за Іран то
Победил Іран.
70%.
Чихуахуа.
Це ж треба таки бути наркошизм, щоб в кінці сказати Іран переміг.
Ты сученый, комменты пропускаешь. Ну да, на ходу данных
You read the Chinese?
I think you can go, guys. Let's go. Let's go.
Зайди в анальность маски так. WhatsApp
There might be some cheap sushi to say.
Нью-Йорк.
Cheap sushi. Oh, you mean because they're closing soon?
I think so, yeah.
Well, you want to check it out?
Oh, that would do that, yeah.
Maybe let's
Half
check it
price,
out.
I think.
Let's check it out. If they have it, I'll get some. I'll take a. I'll get a
Very
takeaway.
good idea. I like it when things are cheaper.
Yeah, of course. What time do they have that? At 9?
I don't know, actually. Good question. Maybe, yeah, maybe it's not time yet. We can ask. If not, then the shop further along, the chicken called Wasabi, they also do that, but I think at a certain time.
5 минут заканчиваем. Пишите вопросы, если еще хотите успеть.
I think they probably close at 9.
Подписываемся, жмем колокольчик. Этот видосик раскидываем по своим соцсетям.